What's up guys, NDM Tech here. So when we start talking about iPhone 14, we have to first mention that the mini is officially gone, which is a sad news for me because I love the iPhone mini. So iPhone 13 mini is gonna be the last flagship mini from Apple, at least for a while, keeping our hopes high. So yeah, getting back to the iPhone 14, the mini is replaced with Plus this time. There are no differences between 14 and 14 Plus except for the obvious size differences. So 14 Plus has a bigger display and a bigger battery. Now let's compare it with the iPhone 13. So when we look at the design, it's the same design. Like you won't be able to tell apart from iPhone 13 and 14 except if you got the 14 Plus version or if you got the new colors. Like it's exactly the same. And another difference is that for US buyers, you won't see a SIM card tray anymore. So that's one more thing to look out for if you're trying to identify whether it's an iPhone 14 or a 13. But the eSIM only option is again only for US users for now, and for every other countries they'll have the usual SIM card tray and the eSIM. Another thing to mention is from iPhone 13, Apple has been supporting two eSIMs together, so you can use dual eSIMs simultaneously. So that's one thing to mention since they are making this change to eSIMs. And coming to the display, it's the same display, same notch, same brightness. Everything is same except for the new size with the 14 Plus. Face ID speeds are the same, it's all the same. And sadly, even the chip is the same. It's the same A16 chip with an added GPU core. So last time it was 4 GPU cores, this time it has 5 GPU cores. Another thing that got added is RAM. So iPhone 13 only had 4 GB of RAM and only 13 Pros had 6 GB of RAM. But this time, the 14s and the 14 Pros all are getting 6 GB of RAM. Now, while coming to the camera, Apple did the same thing that they did last year as well. That is, last year with the iPhone 13, they actually gave the previous year's iPhone 12 Pro's camera for the non-Pro 13s. They did the same thing this time, that is for iPhone 14, they're giving the iPhone 13 Pro's camera. Even though they announced it as the all-new 12 megapixel camera, it's not really an all-new 12 megapixel camera, it's a camera from last year. But yeah, the differences with the 13 Pro camera is that, compared to 13, is that now you're getting a little better aperture, like now it's 1.5, last time it was 1.6, so that's going to be a slightly better low light performance. And Apple has named, like how they have to name everything, a new image processing, like a better image processing called Photonic Engine, and this is what it comes to photography changes this time. And one thing that I'm curious is that since they are using the 13 Pro cameras, we all know that the 13 Pro lenses are a little bigger, right? So I don't think the 13 and 14 can have the same, like you can't use the same cases from iPhone 13 for the 14. Because the camera housing will be a little bigger. We had the same thing going on with iPhone 12 and 13. Anyway, let's see when we'll get a hands-on experience with it. Now coming to videography, the first change is that cinematic mode is available in 4K now. And there's a new mode called action mode. It records at 2.8K. So it's basically cropped in video, like the iPhone shoots 4K video and they crop into 2.8K and you get a better gimbal-like stabilized video. And the iPhone 14s, all the iPhone 14s gets the new front camera. So it has an f1.9 aperture, which means it'll perform way better in low light than the previous camera, which was f2.2. And for the first time, iPhone's front cameras are getting autofocus. iPhone 14 also gets the same sensors that can detect the car accidents from the Apple Watch. So the iPhone 14 will also detect a car crash and then notify the emergency services and all that. Talking about emergency, now you can also connect your iPhone to a satellite, and it won't work if you're around buildings or anything. It'll only work in like empty lands. And there's a software UI that will help you to point to the satellite so that you can connect to the satellite and get emergency services. It's free for 2 years. It's what Apple said. I don't know what's going to be the price after that, but we hope it's going to be really low, and we hope, nobody will ever have to use that. But yeah, if you ever have to use that, it is that. You're not going to be stranded in the middle of nowhere again. You'll have satellites to help you. Charging speeds are the same. I mean, it's still 20 watt fast charging. That's like so less. I mean, at least 50 watts, like 20 watts is so low. But yeah, I know they're saving all this for iPhone 15. So yeah, 20 watts of fast charging and 15 watts of MagSafe wireless charging, which is the same as iPhone 13. Battery life, we don't know the capacity yet because yeah, Apple is like that, and they have their own kind of Apple battery test, and in that we can see the iPhone 14 scoring 1 hour extra time compared to iPhone 13. So I don't know how that is gonna convert to like real life difference, or I don't know whether it will make any real life difference or not. But yeah, we'll see all that when people get hands on with the iPhone 14s and when they get to use it in their daily life. Storage is also the same. It's 128, 256, 512, and now there are 5 colors: midnight, starlight, Red is actually very bright compared to iPhone 13, and there is purple. It kind of resembles the old iPhone purple, like I guess it's from the iPhone 11. It kind of looks similar to that 11 or 12, I don't really remember, but yeah, it looks similar to that. And there's a new blue, which is something that I like compared to the iPhone 13 blue, because iPhone 13 blue looked very, very like cheap. It looked like those knockoffs that China has, but this one looks like kind of very similar to the Sierra blue that we had with the iPhone 13 Pro. And it starts with Indian pricings of 80,000 rupees for the iPhone 14 and 90,000 rupees for the 14 Plus. So I'll be having this buying guide video for all the products, iPhone, Apple Watch, AirPods, so that will help you decide whether to buy or to skip. And it is for all the buyers that are planning to buy an iPhone or like confused whether you got to buy or not. I'm pretty sure that video will end it all for you. So you can click here to watch that video. Coming to the professional iPhone, the iPhone 14 Pro, the design is the same, keeping the front aside. It only got like bigger camera cutouts, and the weight is also the same. It also doesn't have a physical SIM card slot in US, but every other place gets the usual SIM card tray and a eSIM support, just like the iPhone 14s. The display resolution is also the same. The brightness has gone very high. It's gone to like 2000 nits, which is crazy bright, and it's the brightest display of all the smartphones. And the new display has always on display, because even though it uses a LTPO display, now the iPhone's display is capable of going down to 1 Hz, which wasn't possible before with iPhone 13 Pros. It only goes down to 10 Hz, and because of that there was no always on display for the 13 Pros, but this time there is always on display, and yeah, it looks nice. Finally, Apple has caught up with always on display. Android has been having this for years, but yeah, finally Apple has it as well. And talking about the new dynamic island, I actually like how they implemented the dynamic island. And yeah, Android has been having hole punch cutouts for a long time, but then I don't think any Android manufacturer has implemented it in this way, because yeah, you have a lot of third-party apps to hide it, or like, you know, there are some Android manufacturers that have given this battery indicator around the camera cutout. Those are all nice, but those are all like telling you the fact that, you know, the cutout is still there. But then with the way Apple implemented it, except while watching video, sometimes we kind of forget that that thing exists there, because the UI is like playing around a lot there that, you know, you're not really seeing the cutout. And I said except while watching the video, because yeah, while watching the video, the truth is out there, there's a cutout, because there is no way to cover that up. Or you have to watch it without filling up the complete screen, so that you'll have black bars, and then obviously like how notches are hidden right now, you'll get the dynamic island hidden as well. iPhone 14 Pros obviously gets a new chip, unlike the 14s. They're getting the A16 chip, and A16 is the first 4nm chip from Apple. A15 was 5nm chip, so this is a 4nm chip, and it has the same 6 cores, that is like 4 efficiency and 2 performance, and 5 core GPU and 16 core neural engine. And talking about the cameras, the iPhone 14 Pro gets a new 48 megapixel camera after a long time. I remember Apple introduced 12 megapixel camera for the first time in iPhone 6s. That was back in 2015. Till then they were using 8 megapixel cameras. So from 2015 to 2022, after 7 years, we are getting a complete megapixel camera upgrade. But even though the main sensor is 48 megapixels, you will get a 12 megapixel output. 48 megapixels are only used to gather more information for your photo. So only the main camera is this 48 megapixels. The other 2 cameras are still 12 megapixels. The main camera also gets a new stabilization, that is a second generation sensor shift stabilization. So this is the first time sensor shift is getting upgraded since the 12 Pro when they introduced it. Apple has added the software Optical Zoom this time, and I'll tell you how that works. So now it's like 0.5x, 1x and 3x. You get 3 options because you got 3 cameras and you can switch between them like that. But then with the 14 Pros, you have 4 options, even though you don't have 4 lenses, you only have 3 lenses. So in that, 1 is a software option. So it goes like 0.5x, 1x, 2x and 3x. In this, 0.5x is the ultra wide, 1x is the wide, and 3x is the telephoto, but then in between them there's this 2x, right? So how that works is, the main camera is a 14 megapixel camera, so they crop it to 12 megapixels, and that is your optical zoom basically. So yeah, it is technically optical zoom, but then it's also a crop, so you're not losing any information, because at the end of the day it's still 12 megapixels, and it's nice to have more options. So yeah, 0.5x, 1x, 2x software optical, and then 3x telephoto. These phones are also getting a new flash that can lighten up with distance, so it can detect distance and then make the scene brighter, which is nice. And all this while I kept saying that, you know, you're only getting a 12 megapixel output from a 48 megapixel camera. The only place where you can actually use the complete 48 megapixels is when you shoot ProRes. So when you shoot ProRes, you're getting a 48 megapixel output. So yeah, your storage should be ready for that. And talking about storage, it's still the same as iPhone 13 Pro, 128, 256, 512 and 1 terabyte. And talking about colors, it gets 5 colors: gold, silver, space black and deep purple. Silver is very white now. It's like it's not that off-white kind of a thing. It's completely white. And deep purple is nice. They're finally done with blues and greens. We don't know what kind of special edition they're going to come up with again, but then yeah, now we get the purple. I'm not really a big fan. It looks nice, but yeah, I won't be buying it for sure. But if I was going to buy an iPhone 14 Pro, it is going to be the space black because it looks very nice. It looks more black than the 13 Pro. 13 Pro's graphite was not that dark, but this time it looks very dark and I really like that. These are all the new features and changes for both the 14 and the 14 Pro. And as I said, on September 16th, I'll be doing a hands-on video. So stay tuned for that. And there is also a buying guide, which you can click here. And I'm pretty sure that's going to sort all your confusion so that you'll get a better idea on whether to buy the iPhone this time or to skip it. So yeah, actually skip it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and see you guys in the next one.